So today's video is about legal transition. And so this is a question that somebody on my Facebook wall asked about. So shameless plug here. Follow me on Facebook if you'd like me to talk about something about transition or trans-related, things like that. So follow it on the links here. You can also ask questions in the comments here, and I'll often use those for future videos. But onto the subject here of legal transition. And so when we talk about legal transition, we really mean two different things in the trans community. We're talking about a gender marker change and a name change typically. And depending on where you live, those things can be a little bit different in terms of what the requirements are to actually go through and change that. So for example, I have Swedish citizenship and American citizenship, which means that I had to go through a legal transition through both countries' kind of processes. And admittedly, it's a little bit easier for me to go through it in Sweden because I live in the United States. I went through medical transition in the United States, and everything else associated with my identity is based here in the US. And so what I mean by that is that in addition to my, social security type of number in both countries, my passports for both countries, my driver's license for the US, as well as my birth certificate for the US, those are your primary forms of identification in pretty much any country. Then you have secondary kind of legal documents, things that can range from marriage certificates to titles and deeds to property, automobiles, homes, things like that. Bank accounts, loans, any sort of financial documents, and then even things like the name on your college diploma, things like that. And so if you want to change any of that paperwork, you're going to need new forms of identification, and typically to transition your paperwork, you're going to need to have some sort of justification for doing that. And so that can be a court order, that can be a notarized letter from a doctor, kind of giving a statement and attesting to the fact that you are transitioning, that your transition is complete. The requirements of what that letter needs to say can vary depending on where you are. Or it could even be a court-ordered gender marker change. But once you have some sort of document saying change my gender, and you have another document saying change my name, then you can go change all your identification, change your bank accounts or get new ones, and kind of, update or legally transition. And so it's cumbersome to go do it. There's a lot of paperwork associated with it. There are some charges or fees associated with doing it through any legal system, and they kind of vary depending on where you are. But, and once you change that stuff, you change your bank accounts, your credit report will kind of update, things like that. And it is a little bit clunky, and it will depend on, it kind of stinks that getting a US passport is a lot easier than getting a driver's license in many states or a birth certificate updated. But the good news is that changing your passport is a sufficient form of identification for all sorts of things, from voting to employment, everything like that. And so once you get a new passport, changing a lot of other things can become a lot easier, and so that's generally the better way to do it. And if you have questions, leave them in the comments here, and I'll try to get to them.